What's going on, ladies and gentlemen and ladies? Another live stream, and I know you guys are going to enjoy this live stream. We have some wonderful people here: Larry Elder, Damani Felder, some really key Black leaders. I don't even want to go down the path, the conservative, libertarian, Black leaders who are doing a phenomenal job. But I want to jump into the most important reason why we did this live stream is the movie Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom has to be the greatest movie that I've ever seen. It has literally, every time I watch it, I tear up. And especially on your part, Larry, you know, when you said, and it seems like the most simplest part, when you said that I never saw myself as a victim. Never saw myself as a victim. But Larry, tell me what you think about the movie, because you had a phenomenal role in it and also producing and all of the above. So what do you think, Larry, about the Uncle Tom movie?
Well, I am blown away, guys, by the reaction to the movie. I knew it was a good movie when it was being done. I knew we were making a difference. I knew that we were talking about the history of the Democratic Party, the history of the Republican Party. I knew that a lot of people didn't know these kinds of things. I knew we were going to talk about the damage done to the Black family by the welfare state. I knew we were going to talk about all these things. I knew a lot of people hadn't heard them, but I really did not anticipate the profound reaction this movie's had. If you go on IMDb, and there are now over 500 written reviews, over 2,000 reviews, you can rate it on a scale from 1 to 10 stars. It's got a 9.4. Now, I know nothing about IMDb until we started doing our movie, and now I realize the average movie gets maybe a 6.5. A 9.4 is off the charts, far higher than any of the Michael Moore documentaries that have done extremely well. Anyway, liberals have seen this film and have said things like this. I thought two things, Larry. I thought the movie was going to be about you, and as you guys know, I'm barely in it. And the second thing is, I thought it was going to be a bunch of Black conservatives telling people how to think. Instead, you're suggesting that people are free to think for themselves as free individuals. And that's exactly what I wanted to happen. The real premise of the movie is real simple. Profound Black conservatives like Thomas Sowell, Walter Williams, Shelby Steele, Clarence Thomas are completely ignored by people in the Black community. So we're not having an intelligent debate about whether or not we ought to have choice in public education, whether or not we ought to be talking about more secure borders because illegal aliens, at least unskilled illegal aliens, compete for jobs that would otherwise be held by unskilled Black and brown workers and put downward pressure on their wages. So should we not be having a discussion about porous borders? And the Democratic Party supports porous borders. The Democratic Party is adamantly opposed to choice in public schools. So maybe, just maybe, we ought to be having a discussion about whether or not we should remain in the Democratic Party since they are antithetical to the kinds of things we think will improve the Black community. Instead of this sparking a healthy discussion about, okay, let's sit down and talk, it's you guys are coons. You guys are Uncle Toms. You guys are sellouts. You guys should be completely and totally ignored. How much further would the Black community have been if people like Walter Williams and Clarence Thomas, two economists that have talked for decades about what happens to jobs when you increase the minimum wage, you shut out people who are unskilled, you prevent people from getting that first job, and that's really more important than the money. Learning how to show up to work on time, how to be respectful, how to deal with employees, how to deal with customers. These are the kind of skills that are being lost because of minimum wage hikes. How much further would the Black community have been if Thomas Sowell and Walter Williams had been listened to instead of being ignored as Uncle Toms and sellouts? That's all this movie, Uncle Tom, is asking. And a lot of people have said, and this is my last time, I know Damani wants to talk, a lot of people have said, it's a pep talk for America. It's a pep talk for America. It's a pep talk for Black America. Despite slavery, despite Jim Crow, despite horrific discrimination and racism, Black people have thrived and succeeded to the point now where if Black America were a separate country, it would be the 15th or 16th largest country in the world in terms of its collective GDP.
And I think, you know, that's why I love you, Larry. I mean, you come through with you come across with the hot sauce, man. I mean, that's a profound, I guess, evaluation of what the movie, speaks on. Right. And what it allows people to see and feel when they watch it. Damani, you had some parts of the movie that I thought was tremendous. Every time you speak, Damani, it's just knowledge, man. A young man that's articulate, that's bold, courageous, and I guarantee nobody gonna fight you when they see you in public. I want to know your thoughts, man. You had a key role in the movie as well.
Well, it was just an honor to be a part of the documentary to begin with. So many amazing individuals I had a chance to actually coalesce and be with these individuals. But to Larry's point, it really is a pep talk. It's a message of aspiration that I think is very long overdue in our society. If anyone out there watched the DNC, you heard the Democrats for 4 nights in a row talk about how much America sucks, how much we should feel catered to, how much we should feel like we are a marginalized group. And there is so much success that is realized right now, today in America. But that success is more tied to what your own intrinsic motivation and personal aspiration is than what your immutable characteristics may be. So for me to be a part of this documentary and sharing these stories, what I found most profound about this movie is these were microcosms of what a lot of Americans out there actually think. And what's interesting is that there was no collaboration between what I said and between what you said and between what Larry said and the many other people who were voiced in the movie. But it was amazing how the story tied together without there being the need for any bridges whatsoever, because we're all saying the same things. And these are all things that should be common sense at this point. But it goes to show just how far gone society is when we have been catered to as a demographic for far too long. We have been told to not reach for the stars, but instead accept a handout or accept the lie that we are inherently disadvantaged by virtue of the color of our skin. So I thought it was an incredible movie. I was just proud to be a part of it and just to share the stage with so many fantastic voices.
Awesome, man. If you guys haven't seen Uncle Tom the movie, I don't know if you're sleeping on a rock or not, but you can go down in the description section. You can download it. I got the link there. You have to see the movie. Larry and Damani, I went to a church maybe a week ago because they did a screening of Uncle Tom the movie. And when we were there, they brought everybody from the community in that wanted to participate, wanted to show up. Believe it or not, there was a few liberal leaning people there, and it was just a smaller number, but everybody stayed through the duration of the movie. People were crying, people were laughing, people were excited. I mean, people were encouraged. They were cheering. I mean, believe it or not, they were cheering when Trump was talking. They were cheering when Candace Owens was speaking. So they were cheering, they were excited. But we had a panel discussion at the very end of the movie, me and another conservative who happened to think a little different than me. And we had a discussion about all of the things that were addressed in the movie, you know, how Black America views the world now, how the shift is coming, more people are waking up. And people were literally in tears coming up, giving us hugs and taking pictures with us afterwards, because we were there to interpret and also give them some guidance. Most of what happens, and not just white America, but a lot of times this movie is not only prepared for Black America, but white America as well. What do you guys think the benefit is, or how this can help our brothers and sisters who happen to be white? How can this movie frame America in a sense that it gives them a level of speech or gives them some encouragement moving forward?
I'll go first, if you don't mind, Damani. I got a phone call from a woman a few days ago who just told me she was white. She is a psychotherapist, Brandon. And for 2 years, she has been counseling a Black female who had acid thrown in her face by her abusive significant other. The woman, she said, was absolutely destroyed physically and spiritually. She said, and literally she started crying as she was talking to me on my radio show. She said, Larry, for the first time in 2 years, she sat up straight as she and I together watched Uncle Tom. You may, Larry, think this is a little thing, but let me tell you something. She's always slumped down and had an I don't care kind of attitude. And then she smiled for the first time in 2 years. And your movie, as I said earlier, it's a pep talk to America and a pep talk to Black America. You don't sugarcoat all the things that have happened to Black America. You talk about slavery, you talk about Jim Crow, you talk about discrimination, but you talk about the fact that despite all of this, Black people have succeeded. And as Walter Williams once told me, Black people have come further ahead from further behind than any other people in all of the world, and would be the 15th or 16th wealthiest country if the collective GDP of Black people were all added together. White America is now the least racist majority white society in all of the world, provides more opportunities to Black people than any other country in the world, including all of those in Africa. And this is something that was said by an Orlando Patterson, a sociologist who's Black at Harvard. In the 1990s, he said this. Fast forward, Black president, re-elected, and Brandon and Damani, This man, Barack Obama, got a higher percentage of the white vote than John Kerry. And we're talking about institutional racism. It is insulting to people like my father, who once went to a court. He was raised in Athens, Georgia. He wanted to start a taxi service. You had to go to a court to get a license to have to get a car to drive people around. Why you need a license for that is beyond me. And the judge told him in open court he was an N-word and was not going to grant him the license. Turned out the judge had a competing business with black people, didn't want my dad to compete against him. My point is, this is the kind of crap that black people went through every single day. And now a cop pulled me over because I was driving too fast. Oh my goodness, I'm a victim of systemic racism. Give me a break. The numbers are not there. The stats do not show this notion of systemic racism. And the fact that a lot of cops now, because they're afraid of being called racist, are pulling back, crime is going up. And Brandon, I know you talked about this. The very people that the Black Lives Matter people they care about are the ones who are hurt by the rising crime. This whole stuff about Black Lives Matter, cops are going after black people, George Floyd, Jacob Blake. Let's deal with these things on a case-by-case basis. You don't want to go into a department store and get followed around and say, oh my God, I'm being profiled. But you're perfectly okay to do that with a cop. A white cop who does something bad to a white person is called what? Bad cop. White cop does something bad to a black suspect, what's he called? A racist cop. Maybe he's just a bad cop.
100%. I want to go in a different direction with Damani. Damani, let's talk about that. Let's talk about policing in America. Let's talk about this narrative that for some reason, and I just did a video about an 11-year-old. I don't know if y'all seen that video. It was Vox did a video and it says what Black Lives Matter means to an 11-year-old. And this little girl goes through how black people are afraid even sleeping in the bed, giving reference to Breonna Taylor, which she wasn't sleeping in a bed. But they are saying that we can't even walk down the street. I just did a video about Kurt Herbstreit, the dude on the, I guess, the commentary for college football. I mean, I used to watch him all the time. He's crying, saying that black people are afraid and have to have their hands at 10 and 2 when it comes to police. So, Damani, what do you think about this rhetoric that's being pushed that black folks should be inherently scared of dealing with police in America?
Well, it's indoctrination. It starts at a very young age. As you mentioned, the person in that video was 11 years old. It starts even sooner than that now. People talk about having to have the talk with their minority children about how they need to be basically scared of law enforcement at all times. But what we're seeing is this proliferation of insubordination, and that can be tied directly to the way we have been taught. Many people, unfortunately, have been taught to view law enforcement officers. They are there to enforce the law and to keep the peace. The problem that people have, though, especially for younger people out there, is that they begin to consume media at such a young age at this point. They begin to formulate their thoughts on these issues without really having any countering narrative to fall back on, to understand, hey, I might not be getting the full story here. There are two sides to every story. What I find most disquieting, though, is that there are so many people, especially young people, who will latch on to whatever their favorite celebrity says, who then in and of themselves are the repudiation of this victimhood mentality, because all these black entertainers and athletes out there, they have achieved the sum total of what the American dream is supposed to be. But then these same people who have benefited so much from this country turn around and poison the minds of youth by telling them this bill of false goods, saying that they should be living in fear or cowering whenever they encounter a law enforcement officer. And what's funny is that when you look at these people who are out there rioting now, ostensibly rioting over bad police officers or claiming to be for Black lives, you'll see them get up in the face of Black men and women who are law enforcement officers and give them a hard time. So it doesn't make sense when you say you're for Black lives and Black lives should matter, but then you're going to impugn someone else just by virtue of their occupation. It goes to show how hypocritical and disingenuous the entire organization really has become at this point.
And so I'm going to add Chad in a second.
Damani, if I can say, I just wrote a piece about Doc Rivers and some of these other woke athletes and former athletes and coaches who are really, really down with this Black Lives Matter thing. I saw him at a country club here in the LA area. A buddy of mine belongs to one, invited me to a speech. And it was a beautiful speech. He talked about the upcoming Clippers season. He used stats. He used data. He used facts. He collected it. He connected all the dots and talked about what kind of season he was going to have. The same guy, fast forward guys, when Jacob Blake is shot, He says, oh, why does this keep happening? Never mind the stats, never mind the data, never mind any kind of analysis that he would use for his profession for this issue. The facts are that there are 50 million interactions every single year between police and civilians. Out of those 50 million interactions, 11 million resulted in arrests. Out of those arrests, there are 60,000 instances in which the cops are assaulted. All of that results in 1,000 people being shot by the police in recent years, on average. 500 of them have been white, which means twice as many whites have been shot than blacks. 250 of them have been blacks. At least as many unarmed whites have been shot as unarmed blacks. Now, of all the homicides in this country, half of them are black victims. Almost all of them are shot by other black people. And you hear this stat over and over and over again, which is what the left loves to use, that the police are 2.5 times more likely to shoot and kill a black person. That is true. But what they don't tell you is that a young black man is anywhere from 8 to 10 times more likely to be a victim of a homicide than a young white male. The number one cause of preventable death, underscore preventable death, for a young white male is accidents, like car accidents or drowning accidents. The number one cause of death, whether preventable or unpreventable, for a young white man, homicides, almost always at the hands of another black male. That's why the cops are there. You go where the ducks are, you go where the crime is. And when you push this false narrative, what happens is the cops pull back. Heather McDonald's talked about this. It's called the Ferguson effect. And the cops pull back. Bad guys know it. The bad guys out in the streets now doing more bad stuff, harming the very people that Black Lives Matter claim to care about. And my point is this: Doc Rivers, LeBron James, Steve Kerr, Coach Pop, they could not function in their profession if they used the same kind of irrational, emotional analysis as they're using for this issue in their own business. They have what's called sabermetrics. They look at facts, data. Otherwise, they couldn't function. Why don't they use that same mind for this issue?
100%. It baffles me. I'm gonna bring Chad Jackson in here in 1 second, but it baffles me that people are willing to flat out lie. They have these young people who are getting killed by police officers, and they're so disingenuous about the police interaction. It is very clear. I would argue that it's clear as the noonday sun that when Jacob Blake was fighting police officers on the side of the car, had one in the headlock, they tried to tase him twice. He goes to the car to either get a knife or he had a knife when he went to the car. He ends up getting shot, and not to mention that he was wanted for sexual assault, criminal trespassing, and disorderly conduct, all domestic violence related. He was wanted at the time that they interacted with him. Where's the justice for the woman that he assaulted? And if anybody have read exactly what he did, that was pretty messed up what he did to that woman. But nobody's talking about the black woman who was victimized by this individual before any of this happens. Most of these guys are criminals. They're thugs. And does that mean that they deserve to die? No. What it means is that they are acting in a way that's necessitating a use of force from police officers. Sometimes they get hit with bad ones. Sometimes they get hit with good ones, and it's justified. People just don't like it. But let me bring Chad in. Chad, you there, man? I think you're there. Y'all, Chad wasn't even on social media. He's the star of Uncle Tom, but he wasn't on social media. He getting in his groove, so we gonna get him together soon. But Chad, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I hear him.
Hey, Chad, how are you?
Okay. Good. How are you guys?
All right, he getting it. So Chad, I'm gonna jump to you real quick. What's your favorite part of the movie Uncle Tom? What's your favorite part?
My favorite part is a part where Bob Woodson and Larry Elder are talking about that period of time between Reconstruction and the 60s, where blacks were doing quite well, even under the Jim Crow South. And it's almost a forgotten history where today many black youth have no idea. Today, somebody tagged me in a video that someone posted where they're talking about black despair legacy of slavery and Crow.
I think you're cutting out, Chad. I had to bring Chad back in, man.
All right.
But I think he was talking about the period in which, Larry Elder, you could speak to this period, and even Damani, you could speak to this period where they tried to say that the rudiments of slavery has caused black people in America to be at this downtrodden position. Some black people, because we all know that every black person ain't in the hood struggling, selling crack on the corner. So that the rudiments of slavery had led us to this point. But in reality, it's not the rudiments of slavery. It's the state in which they put us in with welfare and some of the other things where fathers are not in the home anymore. So Larry, if you can jump on that, Damani, I want y'all to jump on kind of filling in where Chad left off at about what really caused the problems in America today versus them perceiving that it had to be in slavery.
Well, there's a lot of evidence that the black family was more intact in places like Chicago, Philadelphia, 1890, 1910, than even white families. And certainly more black kids were raised under a roof with their biological mother and biological father during slavery than today. And we can have a healthy debate about why 25% of black kids were born outside of wedlock in 1965 as compared to, say, 10% of white people. But you can't argue that slavery and Jim Crow is the reason why 70% of black kids today are raised outside of family. In my opinion, what's happened because of this so-called war on poverty launched with the best of intentions. If you look at what Lyndon Johnson said when he launched it, he really thought it was going to make people more self-sufficient, more independent. What it did is change the ethics, change the attitude, change the drive in the black community. So now it incentivized women to marry the government and allows men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. So we're now finding a proliferation of black kids raised without fathers in the black community, in the Hispanic community, even in the white community. Now 25% of white kids are raised without fathers. And forget about Elder. Barack Obama once said a kid raised without a father is 5 times more likely to be poor, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, 20 times more likely to end up in jail. It is the number one problem facing this country. And frankly, neither Republicans or Democrats are talking about this.
100%. Damani, what's your thoughts?
Well, that abdication or dereliction of parental responsibility can be directly correlated to the gradual social unraveling that we've seen specifically as it relates to the African American community. When you don't have that positive male role model in the home, it is just the fact that you are going to try to fill in that gap in your life that you know is missing. And unfortunately, a lot of that affirmation ends up coming from the streets. If you talk to the average person who's out there in the streets, though, in the inner cities, they don't want the police to be defunded because they live in fear, mainly because they're upset about and they're afraid of the criminals in their organizations who have essentially held their entire neighborhoods hostage. So when you look at these younger people out there who are acting out, they're acting out for a reason. And the reason is just because they don't have that positive 2-parent home environment in which to grow and nurture. And then they're going to find a way to supplant that in some way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, by virtue of the way the media is set up now, they're going to seek out those wrong influences. And when they do get apprehended by law enforcement, they're inculcated to believe that they're some sort of a victim, or that there's nothing that they've ever done wrong in their lives that would warrant them being stopped in the first place. So for me, seeing it, it's very sad to see what, honestly, a lot of people in power on the left have done to the African American community, especially after we made such fantastic strides in the past, to see how they've very gradually and very nefariously kept us in this mentality. To me, it's completely revolting, disgusting. It needs to be addressed.
100%. I'll pull Chad back in. We'll get to Chad in a second. But I think that we as a society, if you want to diagnose what's the most important thing in the inner city or in the black community, it has to be, in my personal opinion, and I know everybody may share a different opinion, but it has to be the impact of strong male role models. Mama can be around. I mean, everybody has a great mama. They were there. You can't live without your mama. Absolutely. But we need strong men to step up and not only be fathers to their own children, but step up and be leaders and father figures to other young brothers who are out here doing the wrong thing, or at least trying to do the right thing as well. But you need to be that impact. If I didn't have my dad, I wouldn't be here today. I would not be here. And I didn't have to live with my dad 100% of the time to see the value in having him present in my life, having him hold me accountable, and being a physical, visible example of how you're supposed to treat women, how you're supposed to go about life and be a professional. So Chad, I want to get you back in. Larry, you had something to jump on real quick?
Yeah. Chad, I want to make the same point, just a somewhat different way. Some years ago, we were talking about sexual predators and how they have to register with the authorities when they get out of prison. And you can go online and look in your neighborhood and see a map of how many people who are registered sexual predators in your neighborhood. Now, as you know, Brand, you've been in my house before. I live in a very, very nice area. I figured when I go on the map, I see a few red dots here and there. Instead, there were a boatload of dots everywhere in my neighborhood. All these people in my high affluent neighborhood who are registered sex offenders. Now, let's suppose there was a map like that for all the households that didn't have a father in the house. And you look at the map in the inner city, and it would be completely and totally red. And I remember there's a group called TLC some years ago, and one of the singers was an adamant proponent of single-parent households. And the other girls in the group derided her, dismissed her, and referred to her as Miss Two-Parent Household. So we've gotten to the point now where if you advocate a two-parent household, you're the oddball. You're the outcast. You're the one who's demeaning the community as opposed to uplifting the community. This is where we have come because of this welfare state.
Damani?
Yeah, and furthermore, BLM seeks to continue this disquieting trend by stating publicly on their website that they want to abolish the notion or the Western notion of a nuclear family. So when you see that, they basically laid their intentions bare for what the African American community needs from them, what they think the African American community needs. And nothing could be further from the truth. But when you think you are a part of a noble, good cause, that's usually the way a lot of these leftist policies work. It's on their face, just straight up. Black Lives Matter, oh, that doesn't sound too bad, does it? When you look at what actually that statement and that organization means and stands for, they don't care about Black lives, specifically not about Black males. All they really are caring about is getting you to respond in a Pavlovian manner whenever you read a news headline. And the media is complicit in this because the media knows how to spin the narrative from Jump Street to make you react a certain way. Because if you hear about gun violence or gun shootings, if you hear about if it's a Black officer who shoots a white person, I can't think of the last time that got national attention whatsoever. But the minute a white police officer shoots a person of color, specifically an African-American person, the sky is magically falling. But it happens time and time again now that when this actually happens, if you actually peel back the layers of the onion, you will see that most of the time it's because they were resisting arrest, the individual was, or some other extenuating factor was a part of a decision that went into that cop who decided to actually use lethal or deadly force. And most of the time, too, cops aren't looking to have this lethal force from the initial interaction. For the Jacob Blake situation, they apparently tried to use a taser, and the taser didn't work. And then this man just still running around doing his own thing. So eventually, and there's actually a skit that some people can watch from Key and Peele where they were talking about, how police officers might need to react or whatever. It was meant to be a parody, but talking about how, hey, don't do this, the person does it. Okay, well, don't do the next thing, the person does that. At some point, actions have consequences. And the biggest lie that we have been told by people in the mainstream media or entertainers or what have you is that you can do whatever you want with impunity. That's not the way the world is supposed to work. It's not the way the world does work. And the more people realize that, the better.
Yeah, it's out of control.
Brand, this business about the police out to get Black people, the data should be overwhelming. It should be there. As you know, since the 1990s, the DOJ has conducted something called the Police Public Contact Survey, where every 3 years they ask 60,000 Americans, did you have an interaction with the police last year? If the answer is yes, then there's a series of questions. How were you treated? How were you spoken to? Were you touched inappropriately? And they get with their age, race, all that stuff. They cannot find any kind of pattern for a police abuse. The professor that became a tenured professor faster than anybody else in the history of Harvard. Harvard is the oldest college in the country, is a Black professor named Roland Fryer. He's an economist. A few years ago, he assumed that the police were using deadly force disproportionately against Black people. And he was kind of surprised there wasn't a study corroborating this. So he decided to do one. And he came back and he said, the findings were the most surprising of my career. Not only did I not find any evidence that the police were abusing Blacks because they were Black, I found that they were more hesitant, more reluctant to pull the trigger on a Black person than on a white person, probably because they were afraid of being accused of being called racist. Now, it seems to me, if the evidence is overwhelming, that the stats ought to be there. They are not there. any more than the stats are overwhelming, the evidence overwhelming about Donald Trump being a racist. What's the number one thing that they give? Exhibit A, Damani, Exhibit A, Brandon, for Donald Trump's racism. Donald Trump said there were very fine people on both sides in Charlottesville. He didn't say that at all. Even Jake Tapper on CNN said he didn't say it. Even Michael McConish on CNN said he didn't say it. So the number one reason that they give for Donald Trump's racism is something that's bogus. Now, it seems to me that the police are engaging in systemic racism against black people. They ought to be able to confirm it real easily. The data are not there. Finally, guys, isn't this good news? Isn't it good that whatever's going on, it is true that blacks are disproportionately pulled over for traffic?
Uh-oh. I think Larry Elder's internet froze. The internet guys don't want to hear Larry Elder go off, man.
He was throwing too many facts.
His picture may come back. I'll try to put him back in when his picture come back. But what he's saying, Damani, was 100% true, 200% true. I mean, the stats are just not there. I was a police officer for 6.5 years. I worked on a police department where I was, there's rarely any black people that worked on a police department and rarely any black people that lived in Tucson, Arizona. So one would believe that I would observe a lot of racism from the police officers I work with and seeing them interact with the small amount of black people that live there. It wasn't the case. Most police officers don't care about your race, because if only black people were a threat to police officers, then yeah, we'll only pull over black people. We'll only have a problem with black people. But white people, Hispanic, black, Asian, anyone who has a deadly weapon can potentially be a threat to a police officer. I've never seen racist police work while I was a cop. Never seen a cop, never known of a cop that was racist. And to be honest, if a cop is racist, but they never act out their racism, then why are people complaining? It doesn't matter what you feel on the inside. It's how you treat people. And every single officer that I knew on the Tucson Police Department was by and large an honest person. Most of them were great people. Some of them had attitude problems, but I never seen anybody's rights get violated, and I never seen any racism.
And respect begets respect. It doesn't matter where you are, who you are. If you treat a law enforcement officer like they're a human being and just treat them with basic human respect, you'd be surprised at the outcome. There was a time I was actually driving around in Highland Park, which is up a subsidiary or a suburb of Dallas. And it's actually known for being a very affluent area. And I was driving there, and I got pulled over by a law enforcement officer. And he was not a black person, but, he came to the car. I just said, oh, yeah, hey, I'm here. This is why I'm here in this area. When he asked, he was like, oh, okay, cool. He saw my ring. He's like, oh, you went to Texas A&M University? I was like, yeah. And then, got off with a warning because he said that I rolled a stop sign. I wasn't sure if I did, but maybe I did. I don't know. But if I jumped out of the car and said, you pulled me over because I'm black, you're racist, ACAB, what have you, I escalate the situation. And eventually when that happens, sometimes the results are not going to be as you would like, but it was brought about by your flagrant insubordinate behavior. So, and I told the story again on my YouTube channel a couple days ago about how, I was unfortunately brought in by the police for something I didn't do. This happened 6 years ago. But instead of me trying to fight the police officers when they tried to take me in, I just said, you know what? I'll let the courts work this one out. And the courts came through. So all the charges were dropped anyway, because I wasn't the person they needed to get in that situation anyway. But it just goes to show that the more you actually treat them like human beings, and the more you actually show that you value your own life by not flying off the handle, the more you will interact with police officers in a positive way. It's not going to put your life in jeopardy needlessly.
100%, dude. I can't name one person that they're talking about on these videos or whatever that was just doing nothing. Like you and I, Damani, we just law-abiding citizens. We get pulled over by a cop and we just get the mess beat out of. It just don't happen. Most of the time, it's people who are acting a fool. They're resisting arrest. They either pulled a firearm or they have done something crazy that necessitate a response that end up being deadly. And it bothers me that we can't be genuine, because there are things that we can improve in policing in America. I was a cop, man. We need more training. We need better quality police officers. We need more recruiting. We need better pay, to incentivize people to want to go into this profession. So there are some things that we can do and work on, and collectively we could come together as an American body and address these issues. But I can't argue that police need to be reformed because they shot a guy who put a gun on them. I can't argue that police need reform when they execute a warrant on somebody's house and unfortunately they get shot in the crossfire with a guy who shot at the police officers first. I can't argue for you. I can't argue that no-knock warrants should be gotten rid of when they're using Breonna Taylor's case, and in her case, they knocked on her door and was unsuccessful in keeping people alive, yet they conducted a no-knock warrant on Jamarcus Glover's house, arrested multiple people with the no-knock warrant, and nobody got hurt. So how then do you want me to advocate your position when you don't have any evidence to follow? Let me grab a couple of super chats while I try to wait for people to get back in. I'm going to go right off the live stream because my computer is working way, way better. So we'll start from the top. Uncle Tom, y'all need to go follow Uncle Tom's YouTube channel. All of the information from Uncle Tom is there, but you can get the movie from my description section. Just click on the link. Let's see. Evil Betty, thanks so much for the super chat. Tatum Elder Felder for Congress. Let's see. Brady, thanks so much for the super chat. Lisa, thanks so much for the super chat. Love the Uncle Tom movie. Let me get down to some different people. Thank everybody for joining the Tatum squad. Joining the Tatum squad, you hit the join button. That's how you can join the Tatum squad. Elizabeth, thank you so much for the super chat. Amber, fantastic panel. Always love tuning in to beat Tatum each week. Larry, I have followed you for a while and have the utmost respect for you and Damani. Keep bringing the heat on Twitter. Let's see. We got Keith, and then we got one more. Keith, thanks so much for the super chat. Agree with Larry Elder, 95%. The only part I disagree with him on is when he said men abandon their child's financial obligation. He's wrong on that. He forgot there's something called child support, which is based toward or biased against men. Let me jump on that too, and when Larry come back, I'll let him talk about it. Larry's back. I'll let Larry talk about this idea that a person challenged Larry on, saying that he was wrong about the financial obligation being abandoned by the male. Larry, did you hear that segment or at least that portion where the gentleman was saying that he disagreed with you that men have abandoned their financial responsibility, citing that child support is enforced on these men?
Well, the fact of the matter is that, again, 70% of Black kids are raised without a father inside the home. And the reason that's been able to occur is because the government has been able to make it financially easier for a woman to have a kid outside of wedlock, to the point now where a woman with 2 kids makes more money being on the government than she would if she were to take a minimum wage job. And so it's made the man irrelevant. Not only is he irrelevant, he would be an impediment. If he were to come back to the family, she would lose these benefits. So you created a catch-22 situation where you've induced people to become addicted to the government, and you've induced people not to get married, not to have a father in the house, because they would lose the very same benefits that they're getting right now that's enable them to maintain their minimal level of existence. So the whole thing is a scam that's been run on people with the best of intentions, as I said earlier.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm a father and I take care of my responsibilities. You know, obviously I'm married now, whatever, but that don't mean every father does this, because if you ain't got no job, child support you ain't paying nothing. And I know men who are out here that don't have a job, they don't have a career, they don't have money on the books, they have done nothing to support their children. And Larry Elder, I'll add to kind of what you said is that it's not just the financial aspect as well, it's the moral obligation to your kids. You can send a check in the mail every week. That doesn't mean that you're physically there to take responsibility and show your child, the one that looks like you, the one that has your blood in them, your DNA in them, showing them what it looks like to be a man, showing them that their trajectory can be better than they've seen in the past or other people who are not positive role models.
Right.
Hey, your picture looks really good. Larry, what were you going to say?
And Brandon, look, this is something that there is a consensus on. We always talk about how there's a divide between the left and the right. The most prominent think tank on the left is called the Brookings Institution. They said there are 3 things you need to do to become successful, to leave the poverty, become the middle class. Finish high school, don't have a kid until you get married, and then get a job. Those are the 3 things you need to do to get successful, says this left-wing think tank. Guess what? There's a think tank on the right called the American Enterprise Institute. They say the same thing. So here we have consensus. They're both saying the same thing. And as I said earlier, Obama said a kid without a dad, 5 times more likely to be poor, 9 times more likely to drop out, 20 times more likely to end up in jail. Now write him a letter. Don't write me.
Yeah, don't kill the messenger, man. You know, Chad, I want to bring you in. Chad, you look like you went full HD right now. You went from the box television to HD.
So, and I see that Frederick Douglass picture behind him.
Yeah, unmute yourself, Chad. There you go. Go ahead, brother. You got something to add?
Yeah, I'm sorry. No. I just made it in, I guess, with 15 minutes to spare. I'm not sure why my internet wasn't connecting very well, but
you sound good, man.
But yeah, you had asked earlier
what you were saying before you left on your favorite part of the movie and kind of what Uncle Tom means to you. What was the impact it had on your life?
For sure. So altogether, it was a phenomenal movie, and I was just grateful to be a part of that endeavor. And what I liked about it is you had conservatives from all walks of life in it, and I really enjoyed the fact that you had Bob Woodson's voice and Larry Elder's voice, specifically in that part where it's talking about that era of time between Reconstruction and the 60s, when Black families, even in spite of segregation, were doing actually very well for themselves. That seems to be a lost history in this day and age, especially in a time where books like White Fragility and How to Be an Anti-Racist, these books are forefront, and they're creating this narrative where the idea is being pushed that due to slavery, due to Jim Crow, people to the disparities that exist in the Black community today, when in reality, all of it has been by Democrat design. And so I think that the movie kind of speaks to that in that segment. And so yeah, that for me is my favorite part. And the reason why the movie's finally out is going on offense to debunk that narrative. And I just think I am excited to see even more content come out of that. I think Uncle Tom started that wave, and I'm excited to see what comes next for sure.
Yeah, I think I'll add my favorite part. I'll shoot it around to everybody to kind of talk about just a little bit about their favorite part of the movie. And then we're going to give everybody social media, all the people that follow me, how to follow everybody on this panel. So my favorite part of the movie, had to been Herman Cain. I just love the spirit of Herman Cain and how he just was a no-nonsense person. He wasn't letting, this rhetoric bog him down. One part of the movie, he was like, just meet me at the bank, and we could compare bank accounts. And then they asked him, he had mentioned that they had asked him, how did he deal with racism? And he said, I don't deal with it. I let them deal with it. I'm too busy succeeding. And that's like one of the philosophies of my life is that people bring up these ailments and oppressive measures of Black people and 1,000 cuts of racism and all this other stuff. And that was a scene in the movie. But it's like, I'm too busy winning. I'm too busy succeeding. I'm too busy starting my own businesses and doing things that are productive. I'm too busy loving other people. I don't have time to worry about black, white, green, or orange. I love people because I believe that's what God put in my heart to do. So I'm busy doing that. And that was my favorite part of the movie. I liked Herman Cain, God rest his soul. I like what he said. And that was like real prominent for me. Larry, what about you?
Well, and Brandon, the point is, this is not the 50s anymore, for crying out loud. If it were, I would say something different. These people out in the streets, what are they protesting? They're protesting over a narrative that police are killing Black people just because they're Black. The data do not support this. And what you're doing is making things worse. As far as I'm concerned, you're insulting the legacy of people like MLK, people like Andrew Young, people like John Lewis, who literally were beaten. Why? Because they were demanding civil rights, the right to vote, the right to be able to go to a school if you're qualified to go to a school, the right to be able to have public accommodations. We have those rights now. What exactly is it these people are demanding? What they're demanding essentially is that white people should give their property to Black people just because they're white and because Black people are Black. The problem I have with that is what reparations really, this is all about reparations. It is the extraction of money from people who were never slave owners to be given to people who were never slaves. For crying out loud, pick up your cards, play them to the best of your ability. This is the country where you can become the best that you can possibly be, to the greatest ability than any other country in all of human history. And as far as I'm concerned, to bitch and moan and whine and act like we're in the 50s is insulting to the people who were in the 50s, who nevertheless were still able to overcome.
Exactly.
100%. You couldn't have said it better. Damani, what's your favorite part of the Uncle Tom movie? By the way, before you say that, Damani, y'all can get the movie. People are asking, where do you find the movie? Where do you find the movie? Hit the link in my description section. You have access to the movie. There's merch on that link. You get everything you need from Uncle Tom on that link. Y'all better go watch it because it will change your life if you haven't already seen it. Damani, what's your favorite part?
So many. Where do I begin? But one that really stuck out to me was the first-hand account that Larry actually gave with regards to his experience at a Boy Scout retreat that he was at. And he mentioned that there was one individual, unscrupulous though he may have been, who decided it would be a good idea to use the N-word in reference to Mr. Larry Elder. And that individual got his swift comeuppance at the hands of other white individuals there at that camp, and white boys as well. And what I think that story was really poignant to me because it really showed that the vast majority of people out there, especially now in this day and age, and when that happened to Larry, this was back, years ago. But even now, the majority of people in this country are not inherently racist, and we know what real racism is when we see it. And when we see it, we call it out. That's called the court of public opinion, if you will. People know what is acceptable and what's not acceptable now. But I like that story because it showed that, all these people out here right now, a lot of these white people who are out here running around claiming to be for Black Lives Matter, they're doing that because they want to prove to the rest of the world how good they are. Because apparently it's not good enough to just be a good person and actually call out that behavior when you see it. But now you have to do it just so you can show all your little friends and take their Instagram post or post your black square and show, oh, now all my friends know that I'm down with the cause or whatever. So it goes to show that really at the core of all this is just nothing more than a vapid display of self-aggrandizement under the auspices of social justice.
100%. I want everybody to share where you can find your social media platform. Starting with you, Larry. How can people find you? What website they can go to, things like that.
On Twitter, I'm at Larry Elder. I'm on Epic Times on YouTube. Larry Elder Show on Epic Times. I also have another channel for my regular radio show, Larry Elder Radio Show. So Larry Elder, Epic Times, Larry Elder Radio Show, Instagram at Larry Elder, Facebook, of course, Larry Elder.
Awesome. Chad, where can they find you on social media, Chad?
I'm just on Instagram at the moment, but you can find me at Chad O. Jackson, all one word, of course, but that's where I am. Awesome.
We're going to get him a website. We got to get him on Facebook. We got to get him on Twitch, everything.
Brandon, by the way, LarryElder.com is probably easier. Just LarryElder.com.
LarryElder.com. So if y'all go to LarryElder.com, you'll get everything Larry. So Damani, where can people find you at, man?
You can find me on Facebook at Damani Bryant Felder, Instagram at Damani Felder, Twitter at Damani Felder, Parler at Damani Felder, and TikTok at Damani Felder. I think that's all of them. No, YouTube at my channel is The Wright Brothers there, RIGHT Brothers.
The Wright Brothers. Awesome, man. Y'all know where y'all can find me. This is my channel. You just put theofficertatum.com. You can find everything I do. Also, my new website, Tatum Report, is a phenomenal website. We got crazy news on there. Breonna Taylor, we exposed Breonna Taylor's case. It was leaked information that was leaked to us from a person I'm not going to disclose, but we got all the tea on Breonna Taylor and many more. So I want to say this. Somebody brought this up, and I want to get people to ask whatever question you want to ask to anybody on the panel. Put the questions in right now. But while I wait for you guys to do that, Leo Terrell, I think I'm saying his name right. Leo Terrell was a raging liberal, in my personal opinion. I used to see him argue with Candace Owens on TV all day, and I couldn't stand him. I thought he was a nut. And now Leo Terrell is one of the biggest Trump supporters. I'm gonna ask a question and pose a question. Y'all jump in how you feel. What do you think about Leo Terrell, and what does that say for African American people, or I like to call them Americans of African descent, who are now supporting the president versus these crazy Democrats?
Well, Brandon,
Larry flipped him.
I've known Leo Terrell for about 25 years. I met him during the O.J. Simpson case, and he was an absolute nut. Not only did he believe that O.J. Simpson was not going to be found guilty because he felt that the prosecution was doing a bad job, this man literally told me O.J. Simpson did not murder two people. I have spent 25 years beating up on this man's brain, and little by little, I'm going to say I've had an effect. So this guy has been red pilled. He's now done a 180, and I'm going to take credit for it. I've called him Leo 2.0, and that's because of all the hard work I've done, and I've got the bruises on my knuckles to prove it.
I love that because he changed, man. He changed. I don't know, Damani, what you think, brother?
He's another example of the fact that when you begin to take those blinders off and do your own research and self-study and true due diligence, you'll be very surprised to find that what you've been told is not always necessarily true. But where the turning point is when you actually choose to begin making that ideological shift. It wasn't more than just 6, 7 years ago when I was, errantly typing on Facebook about how I thought that George Zimmerman was just the worst person in the world and Trayvon Martin deserved justice and all this. But I was fortunate enough that I had some friends that they weren't quite on the tier of Larry Elder, I must say, but they were still good friends who said, hey, look at this article, read this autopsy report, look at this documentary, read this, read that. So I had to swallow my pride at the time as a young person and say, maybe I'm looking at this the wrong way. And when I saw that I had been essentially taken for a ride by a lot of the mainstream media back in 2012, 2013, I took that as a personal offense because I take pride in what I put out to the rest of the world. And that's never going to happen to me again. So every time I hear a news story now, I'm going to not jump at the first news story, but I'm going to say, okay, well, why did this happen? What happened before this? What are all of the details I need to know before I come to a preemptive conclusion that might be errant? And then I put the information together, and then I feel confident to be able to speak on whatever topics we have now. But Leo Terrell is just one example, but there are millions of other people out there who are starting to have that light bulb start to flicker, starting to realize that they have been sold this bill of falsehoods. They have been straight up lied to. But where the turning point again is going to come is when they say, I'm not going to be that uninformed person anymore. I'm going to challenge what I have been told and be willing to accept what the alternative might be.
Perfect. Let me get to the first question. I'm gonna put the question up here. The Officer Tatum, what are all of your election predictions? Just real quick. I think President Trump is going to win landslide. What do y'all think?
I think he's going to win. I don't say landslide. It's going to be really tough for 3 reasons. They hate his guts. They got plenty of money thanks to the Trump economy. And unlike 2016, they're not going to underestimate him. So Joe Biden, unlike Hillary, is not going to refuse to set foot in Wisconsin. So for all those reasons, it's going to be more difficult for him to win this time than last time. But because I think little by little, we're being able to coexist with the COVID-19, and little by little, the economy is getting better. So I think come November 3rd, more people are going to feel comfortable about the economy and about COVID-19. He's going to win again. But believe me, no matter what happens, the losing side is going to argue that they were cheated. When Biden loses, he's going to claim that he was cheated. He won't concede. So it's going to be weeks, maybe even months before Donald Trump is legitimately determined to be president of the United States.
Yeah, what do you think, Damani? It's going to be close or no?
Yep, I'm in agreement. I think it might look like it might be close, but I think the majority of Americans are going to make the right decision at the ballot box this year. But what we really should be concerned about is not what happens when Trump is reelected later on this year. We should be concerned about what happens next, what happens after that. Because the biggest gift the left has given us over these last 4 years has been showing us exactly what their vision of America should look like. They're showing us that we should begin to accept seeing our city streets set ablaze by violent criminals. We should expect to see people react like trained animals, essentially, whenever they hear that someone is shot by the police, whether or not that person deserved to get shot in the first place. So I think we need to start doing, as a conservative base, as a conservative group, is to start working very hard for what's going to happen in 2025, what's going to happen in the years after that, because the left, they've showed their hand now. They've showed us exactly what they plan to do, what they would like to normalize, and we have to stand against that so that we can hold the line even after Trump leaves office at the end of the second term.
100%. Chad, what do you think,
my
man?
network is in it. Yeah, so my network is not as large, obviously, as everybody on this panel, but I've spoken with many people who didn't vote for Trump in 2016, who say that they are voting for Trump in 2020. And so I do think that you will see a lot of people who didn't vote for him in 2016 who will be voting for him in 2020. I think that it will be a landslide, but I think that it's I think that the left, they have gotten crazier since the 2016 election, and the more they show themselves to be crazy, the more they show their true colors, the more people say, you know what, Trump doesn't really look so bad, and I think that's kind of where we are.
100%. Yeah, I agree, man. I think they've gone crazy. We got about right around 5 minutes. They have gone absolutely nuts. I can't believe they're going with the rhetoric that they're going with. They actually, I'll say this, they could actually beat Trump. I mean, they could. If they picked a better candidate for president and they picked a better vice president, if they had allowed Bernie Sanders to be the presidential candidate and they may have swooped somebody else in that is more charismatic and maybe diverse, they could have had a chance. If they had crazy geriatric Joe and they swooped in Bernie Sanders as his running mate, they still would have had a better opportunity. If they weren't running on defund the police and they weren't just dodging a fastball every time they talk about these riots and protests, I mean, they will have a chance, but they're just pulling. They're just, you know, I would say pulling it down their leg, man. They're not doing what a reasonable party would do in order to win.
And they're playing bully tactics too, as well.
You're muted, Larry. You're muted, Larry. You're muted. All right, let me see. There you go.
Is that better?
Got it.
I was saying the problem is when you get down to it, most elections are determined based on the economy. And prior to the coronavirus pandemic shutdown, you're talking about the best economy this country's ever seen. And then you look at foreign policy. Where in the world are we worse off? He's moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. All the negative things didn't happen. He's done that deal with UAE. He's gotten us out of this stupid Iran deal. He's gotten the NATO countries to pony up more money in foreign policy than they ponied up in past. Obama and George W. Bush complained about NATO allies not ponying up money. Donald Trump complained about it, did something about it. He stopped these caravans that were going from the south. He stopped all that stuff. So tell me where, in terms of foreign policy, is America worse off? The answer is nowhere. And on the economy, he was rocking and rolling before the coronavirus pandemic shut down. So all the Democrats have is Donald Trump, A, is a racist. Donald Trump is literally responsible for killing 180,000 people because of his response to the coronavirus. That's all they've got.
And you remember originally they were forecasting over 2.2 million deaths in America. So when are we going to thank President Trump for saving over 2 million Americans from meeting their untimely end as a result of the coronavirus? Think about that. But all the left has right now is you couldn't write a better script if you tried. We went from, Russian collusion to Ukraine collusion to, now we're going to do impeachment. Oh, now we have the coronavirus. And now we're going to keep the BLM movement on life support from May until November of this year. And then right after this is all done with the election, are they going to be out there, are they going to be painting BLM on the streets again like Bill de Blasio did? No, they're not, because this is just something they can exploit for purposes of political expediency at this point. They know exactly what they're doing. They're going to drag this out the way up till November, and then we'll see what happens in the aftermath. But yeah, nothing's new under the sun. We see them for what they are at this point.
Yeah, I think Larry Elder got clipped off. We're gonna end in about 2 minutes. But Chad, man, I really appreciate what you've done in the movie, man. You were an intricate part. People that don't know Chad Jackson, when you watch the movie, you'll find out. Some of y'all already know who he is because you watched the movie already. But Chad, very, very humble man, not a social media guy. And, I just personally, now that I got you on here, man, I just want to say thank you. And y'all need to go out and follow Chad, man. Go support Chad. Also, Chad is coordinating screenings. So if you have any screenings that you want done in your city, you can put it together. You got a venue that you want to connect with Chad. Chad, give them, if you have it available, give them an email address or something that they can communicate with you in case they want to do a screening at their church or they want to do an event associated. They'll come to you, Chad, to make that happen. So do you have somewhere to send them?
Yeah, sure. So you can just go to the uncletom.com web. See if there's any screenings in your city right now. I don't think there's a lot on there right now, but if you fill out that template, those emails me, so I can actually with you screening set up. Depending on if it's in Los Angeles or Arizona or Houston where Damani is, we could probably get those guys in for a Q&A session after the fact, depending on the venue, depending on the event, and depending on their schedule, obviously. But yeah, just go to uncletom.com. At the website, there's a tab at the top that says screening. Click on that, fill out that template, and we'll try to get something worked out for sure.
Yeah, they said people were saying that your audio cut out a little bit, but you go to uncletom.com, go to screenings, fill out the form, and then Chad is going to get that information, and we'll make it happen. I already done one. I did one in California at a church. It was an amazing time, and I hope we can do it all over the country. If you live out there where the money at, hey, the money can put one on. You know, it'll be a success. So y'all make sure y'all go and follow everybody on this panel. Follow Larry Elder. Again, I want to do one more round. Throw your social media out there, and then we have to jump off. So, Damani, where can they find you on social media real quick?
Yep, Damani Bryant Felder on Facebook, at the Damani Felder on Twitter, at the Damani Felder on Instagram, at the Damani Felder on Parler, and at the Damani Felder on TikTok. For YouTube, my channel is The Wright Brothers. That's RIGHT Brothers.
Perfect. Chad, where can they find you, brother?
You can find me on Instagram at Chad O. Jackson, or YouTube actually too, at Chad O. Jackson.
Perfect, man. Hey, I appreciate you brothers being on here, man. I love y'all like y'all my blood kin, and I really appreciate y'all. So, man, y'all be safe. God bless you. I'm gonna have some final words, but you guys are free to leave, man. I appreciate it. Thanks y'all.
For having us, Brandon.
For sure, man. So, Chad, I gotta have you guys back on the Thursday show. I'm gonna have them back on the Thursday show. So I just want to say this real quick before I get off here. You can get the Uncle Tom movie. You want to watch it, just put, the link is in the description section. I made it easy for y'all. You ain't got to go search nowhere. You can go to the description section. If you happen to be on any one of our platforms, I'm pretty sure there's a link for you there if you want to watch Uncle Tom later and you missed it tonight. Also, if you want to participate in direct connection with the Trump campaign via newsletter, via email information, scheduling, all of that, type Tatum or text Tatum to 88022, 88022. Text Tatum to 88022, and you'll get text updates from the Trump campaign. Also, if you don't want no text on your phone and you want to download the app, the Trump campaign app is available. The link is in the description section. Go and download the app. You'll get updates. You'll get updates on scheduling. You'll get news directly from the campaign, talking points, everything that you need, all things Trump. All things Trump, ladies and gentlemen. And visit TatumReport.com. Go on there and subscribe. I know a lot of y'all are part of TatumReport.com. Go on there, TatumReport.com. Thank you all for the super chats. I'm going to go through and try to read all the super chats because my computer is finally working right. I'm going to go read all the super chats. But make sure y'all go and do what I asked you to do if you want to be a part of the movie mint. All right, let's get to these super chats. First of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who joined. Darwin, thank you so much. Mark, thanks so much for joining the Tatum squad. I really appreciate y'all going and supporting the Tatum squad. I'm going to get to these super chats quick, fast, and in a hurry. Josh, whenever you're telling the truth, the left tantrums like a 5-year-old. 100%. They're crazy. Amber, I think I got your super chat already. Thank you so much for the super chat. Katz, thanks so much for the super chat. John, Chad, thanks for joining the Tatum squad. Let's see. John, thank you for the super chat. Democrats, black voters matter. Black votes matter. Keith Thomas, thanks so much for the super chat. I agree with Larry Elder. I got that one already. We did it. Fred, thank you so much for the super chat from Canada. Our brothers and sisters who happen to be white. Those are the words spoken by those in the American tribe for the Canadian member. This is Africa. Thank you so much. Y'all need to go follow This is Africa. It's a pretty cool YouTube channel that I saw, and you know, I follow them. I click on their stuff all the time. So This is Africa is a pretty good one. Thank you for the super chat. I sent you an email, so I hope that it finds you. It's very important. If you sent it, send me the email again until I get it, because it goes down the chart and then I try to follow up. So send me the email again. Send it directly to connect@theofficertatum.com. Connect@theofficertatum.com. If you send it to me directly and not through the system, I'll see that it's a different email. Casey, thanks so much for joining the Tatum squad. Let's see. Please cover California Senate Bill SB 145. I will. I'm going to make a video about the SB 145. I think I'll make it tomorrow when I have a little more time. and we can expose what LGBTQ is really about and what these people are y'all know. I don't want to get too deep into it. Let's see. Darwin, thanks so much. Says you men are doing valuable work. Andrea, thanks so much for the super chat. Have you ever thought about running for Congress? I thought about it. I don't want nothing to do with politics. I really don't like to be a political person. Studio Andrew Anderson, thanks so much for the super chat. I respect you guys. Thank you. I want to have people on my channel to share their stories, but everyone won't talk to conservatives or is scared to go public with their views. Do y'all know a solution? I mean, there's many solutions. You got to think outside the box. You can have them come on anonymously. They can use their voice. They don't have to have a picture, things like that. Or you can just relay their stories. Have them write them down. You read them out verbatim. Let's see. Delta Dan, thanks so much for the super chat. I always wanted a child, but my son was kidnapped, and now I have a child support ransom. This is why I am done with the scam, MagTow. Now, I see what you're saying, man. I mean, I think I've been paying child support my son's whole life, and I know that it's a scam in a certain way. You know, not necessarily to the kid, but like the system is rigged to be manipulative. It's almost like you rent your own kid. That means if you get to rent them out, and if you don't have the money to do it, or if you can't afford it or whatever, you can't see your kid. That's like a rental plan. And then it don't let you make a good amount of revenue. You're gonna be paying crazy amounts of money. Especially if I ain't gonna get into that, but you'll be paying crazy amounts of money, essentially taking care of the other parent and not the kid. So it's got its faults. That's why you supposed to. Now I ain't gonna say this. I'm gonna criticize people like myself and others who had children out of wedlock. That's what you get, because you shouldn't have had kids out of wedlock. Now, for married folks that get divorced, I feel a little more sympathy for you because you tried to do the right thing in the first place. But for people like myself, like you can't feel sorry for yourself and want people to feel sorry for you. God told you not to have children out of wedlock. So all of the rudiments of having children out of wedlock, not the children, but the policies and the court system, you got to deal with it, man. You should have done what you're supposed to do. Big dog on their neck. Larry Elder for president. This panel 2020 Dream Team. Thank you so much for the super chat. Let's see. JT, thanks so much for the super chat. You guys are true role models to everyone. Andrea, what freedoms do you think will go first if Biden became president? Should we prepare for the possibility? Nah, he ain't gonna become the president. But you should always prepare for the possibility, because you don't know who's gonna try to take your freedoms. It could be somebody outside of the liberal crazy agenda. It could be your state senators. I mean, not state senators, but governors and mayors. They can take state rights and freedoms from you just as well as anybody on the federal level. So I think that we should always be prepared to defend our freedoms. Damani, is Damani from Houston? I'm not sure. I think he is, man. I'm not sure if he's from Houston. Have you checked out Kevin on Kevin's Corner on YouTube? You should check him out. Yeah, Kevin Corner is a friend of mine. I know Kevin. I like him. He's cool. I need to get more people on the panel. That's it. Thursday panel. We need to stack the panel, and maybe we'll talk for a couple hours. We'll stack the panel. Cora, thanks so much for the super chat. Do you believe our enemies are here or have been for decades to take our country down? This isn't about our president at all. We're under attack like we've never been. 100%. It's 100%. Like, our enemies are within. Our enemies are within. Some of the worst people that you know, and that the people that the most evil people are your family members. Let's see. Island Thrifts. Will you do a story about Tony Temple? I think I will. I'm trying to wait till it's hot, but I think I'll do a story about Tony Temple, because Tony Temple was an interesting case. He was treated similarly, I think in some ways worse than George Floyd, and nobody's saying anything because he's white. They don't even care. Somebody said your interview with Dave Rubin was the first time I saw you, and I've been following you ever since. I wish more people understood the truth. Amen and amen. That Dave Rubin interview was very popular for me. But anyway, I love you guys. I appreciate you. I think I got all the super chats out of the way, at least most of them. Make sure you check out the rest of my videos today. I got 2 more videos posting after this, talking about big topics. So check out the videos. Click the links in the description section. Y'all know what it is. I love y'all, man.